Our food choices are the result of more than just our palates. They're also shaped by histories. Within Native American communities in the U.S., food is a symbol of a people's struggle to preserve their tradition despite the violence of colonialism. But when Native American communities reclaim their food traditions, so much good can come out of it, impacting both their cultures and their bodies.
Reminder, Tuesday, December 8th, 2015, in the Eagle Room at the RTG, KBFT and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund presents a food event in honor of our elders, featuring Sean Sherman, the sous chef.
Sean Sherman's been a professional chef for the past 27 years. He got his start by cooking what most people would consider traditional American food. But today, he's preparing a traditional Native American feast for the Chippewa on the Bois Forte Reservation in Minnesota.
Oops.
It's fair to say Bois Forte is secluded. In the 1800s, Native American communities were isolated through a series of policies enacted by the U.S. government. Everything from commerce to food supplies were cut off. In its place, the government pushed prepackaged commodities like lard and sugar. This is what Chef Sherman calls oppression food, food that literally sickens the body. Centuries later, the only place to buy food in Bois Forte is a gas station. For anything that's not junk, you need to travel 34 miles to the closest market, 62 for a real grocery. Sean wants to fix this by bringing indigenous cuisine back to its people. Making sure that Native American food histories and food items themselves are present for Native American people, that's important to you.
Yeah. Well,
why?
I grew up on Pine Ridge Reservation, and I started cooking at a really young age. And I got to a point where I had this vision of wanting to do Native American food because it was food of my ancestors and my heritage, and the oppression foods that people got put on. So once they're moved onto reservations, they were forced to become dependent on the government for lots of canned foods and packaged foods, and I grew up with that stuff, and I didn't think much of it. I didn't like a lot of it. I thought all cheese tasted like the big block cheeses, and I couldn't eat salmon because I thought all salmon tastes like this canned government salmon we used to get as kids. It's just bad food. It's getting people to really reconnect with the plants as a food source that are all around them, and utilize more of the wild game that's always been there, and just really think about these flavor profiles that really speak of something that's Native American and doesn't feel like it's Italian or anything else in general.
Sean is not alone in this mission. Rebecca Yoshino from Wojubi Tribal Gardens is working with Sean to restore the indigenous diet for reasons beyond taste. Native Americans have the highest rates of diabetes of any racial group in the U.S. Since commoditized foods were introduced in the 50s, Native American communities have been plunged into a diet-induced health crisis.
Food is medicine, and food can also be poison, depending on what it is that you're putting into your bodies. There are so many health-related illnesses that could be remedied with healthy foods or clean foods, indigenous foods, that are just not available. So it's very, very serious.
What can one find on this property here?
You want the laundry list of everything here. Well, we have elderberries and juneberries, wild plums, hazelnuts, choke cherries. Some of these foods that were historically wild here. You can still find them in the wild in the Minnesota River Valley, and are culturally significant foods as well. A lot of communities here within this country, we're growing crops like sunflowers, corn, squash, beans, tomatoes, sweet potatoes, all kinds of stuff. And when communities were displaced from their lands, commodity foods were brought in that were incredibly unhealthy, and started making people really sick. Food and access to food was definitely used as a weapon to help, subjugate.
Like what? So when you say commodity foods?
Like
processed
white
foods,
flour and, butter. Yeah, lots of highly processed foods. Fry bread, that is not traditional food.
What is fried bread? Because I hear It's it's a staple.
It is, absolutely, and a lot of people do think of it as more traditional food, but it's literally white flour, in water, and I mean it's a dough that's deep fried that tastes really good, but is really unhealthy.
A long time ago, fry bread was illegal. You couldn't eat fry bread or you couldn't speak fry bread in public places. So the good people of Boise...
Keith Secola is a Native American folk artist and a cultural icon. His hit song, Indian Cars, has been the most requested song on tribal radio for over 20 years. Can you talk about the importance of holding on to your indigenous traditions, like your food recipes, like your music? Why is it important for the generation today to hold on to these?
Well, I think it's important to our way of life. In Anishinaabe, up here, we call it Minnow Bedeshawin, to live a good life. And to live a good life, you have to have good food. Because I think what happens is the nutrition, it confuses us and it makes us mean or makes us unhappy. And so I think if we get our balance back to our traditional foods, that it'll help everything from diabetes to high blood pressure, hypertension, and all the other illnesses that are very, very plaguing Indian country. Fry bread.
Bonjour, Karen Drift Indigenous Cause. KBFT's word of the day is strawberries. Odeminan. Odeminan. Strawberries.
Karen Drift is one of only 10 remaining Bois Forte residents fluent in a native language. It's no coincidence she chose fruit for her word of the day on local radio. Like Keith, she believes oppression food isn't just a nutrition problem, but part of a greater movement to restore a sense of language and identity.
We're losing everything, not only the way it was before, foods and language and,
What is your message to your grandkids, to those who come after your grandkids, as it relates to the preserving of your culture? What would you say to them?
Well, what I do say to them is, and anybody else that'll listen, you learn your language first and everything else will follow. Your ceremonies, your ways of eating, I tell the other people that'll listen, our kids are coming up. What's going to happen to them?
The work that people like Sean are doing brings elders like Karen a new sense of hope. Retracing the past may be the key to a strong future in Native communities. In the absence of government accountability, returning to indigenous food, words, and music can make a world of difference.
I knew from the get-go that this was way bigger than I could ever be. This food and the chance of being able to bring health back into communities just by showing people how to eat great, wonderful food that's always been around them. We have this direct connection with the plants around us, and I just want people to get that back, get to know these plants again and these foods again. So yeah, it's way bigger than I can ever be. I wouldn't even want to try to stand up to something like that. So I just really want to share moving forward.